It is failing to recall what has been learned when attempted to do so. According to Drever, in 1952, forgetting means failure at any time to recall an experience when attempting to do so or to perform an action previously learnt. Causes of forgetting. According to Gestalt psychologists, there are some autonomous forces acting upon memory traces, slowly transforming their contents into a form more closely resembling a good gestalt, a simple, well organized and a stable structure. If the trace transformation were too extreme, then all semblance of the initial vertical trace would disappear, so that a retrieval queue could not make contact with such an altered trace. In operational terms, the person would be said to have forgotten the original event. On the other hand, if the autonomous transformation were not too extreme, recall or reproduction of the trace should reveal systematic and progressive distortions in the direction of better organization. Disuse or decay with passage of time is another reason of forgetting. Any type of learning produces a neurological tissue change in the brain known as memory trace. These passively decay through disuse as time passes. Interferences like retroactive and proactive inhibition causes forgetting. Emotional disturbance is another reason of forgetting. Sudden rise of strong emotion block the process of recall. Inadequate impression causes forgetting. Inadequate learning is likely to be forgotten easily. Inadequate mental set is a reason of forgetting. A child is most likely to learn and retain the things that concern him and that he considers as important. He tends to forget those things that have no relationships with his needs and interests. Retention and recollection are the results of mental set. Poor health and brain injury are also reasons of forgetting. People suffering from serious disease forget what they have learned. Often when a person suffers a brain injury, he forgets many incidents and experiences, and the extent of the forgetting depends upon the seriousness of the injury. Ebbinghaus curve of forgetting. The German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus, between the year 1850 and 1909, founded the experimental study of memory. Previous researchers had asked people to describe their memories, but they had no way to measure the accuracy of people's recollections. Ebbinghaus did his research by teaching new material and then measuring memory for that material after various delays. To make sure that the material to be memorized would unfamiliar, Ebbinghaus invented nonsense syllables, meaningless three-letter combinations such as GAK or VUB. He wrote out 2,300 such syllables and arranged them in random list. He memorized the list of nonsense syllables and then tested himself at intervals varying 20 minutes to a month to see how much of the list he remembered. The results in terms of the percentage of material forgotten with lapse of time were as follows. Time elapsed and the amount forgotten. In 20 minutes, the amount forgotten is 47%. In 1 day, it is 66%. In 2 days, the amount forgotten is 72%. In 6 days, it is 75%. And within 1 month, the amount forgotten is 79%. He plotted the data as a graph. He termed the graph, which he obtained by plotting the amount forgotten as a function of time, as the curve of forgetting. From this experimental data and a presentation in the form of the above curve of forgetting, Ebbinghaus concluded that the amount of learned material forgotten depends upon the time elapsed after learning, and the rate of forgetting is very rapid at first and then gradually diminishes proportionately as the interval lengthens. Next is theories of forgetting. disuse theory. The simplest theory of forgetting is that of disuse or decay. The idea is that learning is a result of practice or use, while during retention intervals when the information in question is not used, forgetting occurs. Therefore, disuse causes forgetting. Such a theory has an implicit physiological basis. It is assumed that learning modifies the central nervous system and that forgetting is produced by deterioration over time of the trace in the central nervous system. Thus, forgetting is conceived of as similar to the progressive fading of a photograph over time or the gradual obliteration of the inscription of a tombstone. Forgetting by this view is due to a failure of storage. Neither encoding nor retrieval is implicated. Such a theory is inadequate on several grounds. The single biggest objection is that it is possible to demonstrate that forgetting is affected by the activities that a subject engages in during the retention intervals, the interval between initial learning and the test of retention, that is retention interval. The theory has proved a failure in many instances of forgetting, and in long term memory such as learning to ride a bicycle, for forgetting does not occur even after years of disuse. Similarly, the trace decay theory, through its disuse mechanism, has proved a failure in explaining the morbid or abnormal forgetting. However, this theory has provided good results in explaining forgetfulness in the context of short term memory. Drill, practice, rehearsal or repetition of a learning always succeeds in preventing decay. Thorndike's law of use refers to the strengthening of connection with practice, while the law of disuse to the weakening of connection when the practice is discontinued. Another theory is the theory of interference. The second major theory of forgetting holds the mechanism of interference responsible for forgetting. Interference is a negative inhibiting effect of one learning experience on another. This theory holds that we forget things because of such interference. The interesting effect of things previously learned and retained in our memory with the things of more recent memory can work both forward and backward. The psychological terms used for this type of interference are retroactive inhibition and proactive inhibition. Retroactive inhibition occurs when previously learned information is lost because it is mixed up with new and somewhat similar information. For example, young students might have no trouble recognizing the letter B until they are taught the letter D. Because these letters are similar, students often confuse them. Learning the letter D thus interferes with the previously learned recognition of B. In the same way, a traveler may know how to get around in a particular airport, but then he loses that skill in some extent after visiting many similar airports. Proactive inhibition occurs when learning one set of information interferes with learning of later information. For example, we may find it difficult to learn a second language when vocabulary or grammar from the first interferes, or learning a new formula may be hampered on account of the previously learned formulae in one's memory. Another theory is repression theory. Abnormal or morbid forgetting may be explained in the light of the repression theory put forward by Freud's psychoanalytic school of psychology. Repression is a mental function which cushions the mind against the impact of painful experiences. As a result, we actually push the unpleasant and painful memories into the unconscious and so try to avoid the conflicts that bother us. Thus, as a result of repression, we forget the things we do not want to remember. Primacy and recency effects. One of the oldest findings in educational psychology is that when people are given a list of words to learn and then tested immediately afterward, they tend to learn the first few and the last few items much better than those in the middle of the list. The tendency to learn the first things presented is called the primacy effect. The tendency to learn the last things, the recency effect. The most common explanation for the primacy effect is that we pay more attention and devote more mental effort to items presented first. Mental rehearsal is important in establishing new information in long-term memory. Usually, much more mental rehearsal is devoted to the first items presented than to later items. Recency effects, on the other hand, are due in large part to the fact that little or no other information intervenes between the final items and the test. Primacy and recency effects should be considered by teachers. They imply that information taught at the beginning or the end of the period is more likely to be retained than other information. To take advantage of this, teachers might organize their lessons to put the most essential new concepts early in the lesson and then to summarize at the end. Many teachers take roll, collect lunch money, check homework and do other non-instructional activities at the beginning of the period. However, it is probably a better idea to postpone these activities to start the period right away with important concepts and only toward the end of the period deal with necessary administrative tasks. How to improve memory or how to prevent forgetting? Mere repetition of material for the sake of memorization in the form of mental exercise does not yield enduring and effective results. Memory consists of 4 factors: learning, retention, recognition and recall. Improvement in any one or more of these constituents is likely to improve memory as a whole. Therefore, to obtain a logical answer regarding the improvement of memory, its 4 different components have to be considered. Is it possible to improve learning, retention, recognition and recall as independent functions? Let us examine these aspects and try to find an answer. Retention, it is said, is native and inherited and therefore cannot be improved by training. We can at the most try to protect retentiveness by some measures, but it is not hardly possible to improve it by training. In the case of recognition also, it is most difficult to say whether it can improve by training, as it happens to be a prompt and spontaneous act. The remaining 2 constituents, learning and recall, have been observed to improve by training. Let us see how they can be improved. While trying to recall something, you should be free from excessive anxiety, fear and other emotional factors which tend to block memory. Have a confidence in yourself and never think that you would not be able to recall something. Be calm, avoid nervousness and concentrate on the task of recall. Remember that association of ideas, connection and systematic thinking are very helpful in the task of recall. If, for example, you need to recall the place where you have put the key of your drawer, and you should try to think systematically with the help of the principle of association. Where was I just before this time? What was I doing? I was taking a bath, so I may have put it in the cupboard of the bathroom. Proceeding like this, you can ultimately recall the exact place. Do not strain yourself for too long to recall anything. If you find it difficult to recall something, give up for a while and after allowing yourself a little time to relax, try again later. Learning is the most important factor of memory. Improvement of memory to a large extent rests upon this factor, which can be improved by training. Improvement in learning is mainly influenced by the techniques and the methods of learning, the learning situations and the environment, and the learner's state of mind. Improvement in all these aspects calls for interest and earnestness of the part of the learner. Let us now examine some of the requirements and techniques which can lead to successful results. Will to learn. There must be firm determination or strong will to learn effectively and successfully. Where there is a will, there is a way. Interest and attention. Interest as well as close attention are essential for useful learning and memorization. A person who has no interest in what he learns will not give due attention to it and consequently will not be able to learn it. Adopting proper methods of memorization. There are several efficient methods of memorization, but not all are suitable on all occasions and for all individuals. Therefore, a judicious selection should be made in choosing a particular method in a given situation. Following the principles of association. It is always good to follow the principle of association in learning. A thing should never be learnt in an isolated, insular manner. An effort should be made to connect it with one's previous learning on the one hand and with as many related things as possible on the other. Sometimes for association of ideas, special techniques and devices are used that facilitate learning and recall. Example, the letters Vibgyor have proved to be very effective and to remember the colors of the rainbow. Grouping and rhythm. Grouping and rhythm also facilitate learning and help in remembering. For example, the telephone number 567345234 can be easily memorized and recalled if we try to group it as 567, 345 and 234. Similarly, rhythm also proves to be an aid in learning and memorizing. Children learn effectively the multiplication tables by reciting them in a sing-song. The arrangement of the material in verse with rhythm and rhyme is found very useful in this direction. Utilizing as many senses as possible. Senses are said to be the gateways of knowledge, and it has also been found more than one sense. Therefore, attempts should be made to take the help of audio-visual aid material and receive impressions through as many senses as possible. Arranging better learning situations. Environmental factors also affect the learning process, and due care should therefore be taken to arrange favorable learning situations and environment. The learner's internal factors. The physical and mental health had emotional state at the time of learning as well as reproduction of the material learnt counts a lot towards the effectiveness of his memory. Therefore, due attention should be given to the improvement of the situation's health, physical as well as mental. Provision for change and proper rest. Adequate provision for rest, sleep and variety in the work should be made, as this helps to relieve fatigue and monotony. A mind which is fresh is naturally able to learn more and retain it for a longer period than a mind which is dull and fatigued. Repetition and practice. Finally, repetition and continuous practice add to the effectiveness of memorization. Intelligent repetition with full understanding always helps in making the learning effective and enduring, and things repeated and practiced frequently are remembered for a long time. Making use of SQ4R technique. Thomas and Robinson in the year 1972 developed this strategy for effective learning and memorization. In this technique, the learners are taught to adopt a systematic approach to learning the desired material involving sequenced steps, that is survey, question, read, reflect, recite and review. These steps are named and remembered through the letters SQ4R. Making use of mnemonics. Mnemonic is a Greek word meaning aid to memory. In the sense, a device that helps us remember information is known as mnemonic, and an entire system to improve or develop memory is called mnemonics. This system usually makes use of visual imagery to provide useful associations and connections for remembering the required material. Let us consider a few popular mnemonic devices. The method of loci. The word loci means locations or places in Latin, and the loci method is based on the assumption that location can serve as an effective cue for remembering the material. It consists of the following 3 steps. First step, developing one's own route by identifying a set of places which occur in some natural or familiar order, that is 20 or 30 locations in one's own house. Second step, converting each item one wants to remember into an image and storing it in a location, a stop on the decided route. And the third step, during retrieval or reproduction, taking a mental walk by recalling what was placed or stored in each place falling on the familiar route. The peg word method. In this method, we have to memorize a set of peg words rather than a set of locations as cues. The peg words numbering 1 to 10 may be memorized with the help of a rhyme such as 1 is a gun, 6 is tricks, 2 is a shoe, 7 is heaven, 3 is a tree, 8 is a gate, 4 is a door, 9 is wine, 5 is knives, 10 is hen. Each item to be remembered is then converted to an image so that it figuratively hands on one or the other peg, such as the words gun, shoe, tree, etc. in the foregoing rhyme. At the time of recall, the peg words serve as cues. What one has to do is to simply follow the per words in numerical order. The narrative chaining method. This method consists of making up a story built around whatever things one wants to remember. Here, the plot or incidences of the story work as a clue for remembering the items. Initial letter strategy. In this strategy, the initial letters are the focus for remembering and association. Suppose one has to remember the order of the planets going away from the sun. What he has to do is to take the initial letters of the list of the planets and then make a more easily remembered word or phrase like men very easily make jugs serve useful nocturnal purposes. This phrase can be helpful in making the proper association and then remembering the order of planets, that is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. The keyword method. This method makes use of the imagery for remembering the difficult, uncommon and unfamiliar words and items. For example, if one wants to learn golova, the Russian word for head, one looks for a keyword resembling and associated with the word golova. It may be Gulliver. Now, a mental image can be built around this keyword, making note of the other word head of the desired pair of associate learning. For this purpose, the learner may visualize Gulliver with his head tied down by the Lilliputians, and this portrait or mental image may now help him to remember the Russian word golova associated with its English equivalent head. Let me summarize the session. This chapter provides a detailed description of the concept forgetting. It discusses the causes of forgetting, Ebbinghaus curve of forgetting, the theories of forgetting, etc. Moreover, some important methods used to prevent forgetting are also discussed in this chapter. Now, you can try to answer the questions given here. 1. Explain the different causes of forgetting. 2. Discuss Ebbinghaus curve of forgetting. 3. Explain the theories of forgetting. 4. What are the ways by which training in memory can be given? 5. What is the role of the teacher to manage the forgetfulness among children? Hope that you may go through the reference books given here. Human Memory by I. Niath and A. M. Serprenant in the year 2002, Thomson Wordsworth Publications, Canada. Learning and Memory, an Introduction by J. A. Adams in the year 1976, Darcy Press, Illinois. And Human Memory, Research and Theory by L. S. Cermak in the year 1972, Ronald Press, New York. Thank you for watching this program. We can meet again with another topic. Till then, take care.